Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Coming up on the First Take podcast, who is the X factor in the finals rematch for the Spurs and the Heat? Is Tom Brady no longer a top 5 quarterback? And is Des Bryant the next Michael Irvin? All that and more coming up on the First Take podcast, which starts right now. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to First Take. Carrie Champion here. Skip Bayless to my left. Stephen A. Smith to my right. The trio's in the house.
Another rare treat.
A rare treat. How are you, my friend?
All right.
All right, guys, listen. There's something very important that's happening.
Uh-oh.
You know about it?
What?
We hit the road on Thursday, folks. San Antonio.
You got to tell everybody that?
Riverwalk.
Mayor is back.
The mayor is back. They're waiting for you.
Y'all go ahead and enjoy yourself.
Oh.
Go to Riverwalk.
Oh.
Go to Riverwalk. I'll meet y'all in South Beach.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. On the show today.
I'll be there.
He'll be there. Statistics show that Tom Brady is no longer a top quarterback.
What?
Yeah.
They do not.
They do show that. He's in decline, according to some statistics. That is the question, rather. The gentleman will have an answer and a debate. He says no, but let's get to it, folks. Let's stay with the finals. We talked about us hitting the road on Thursday. Let's talk about Tim Duncan. He's in San Antonio. After the win on Saturday, he said last year's finals left a bad taste in their mouths, and they're glad that it's the Heat again. LeBron James responded on Monday.
It's unbelievable to regain that focus after exactly the devastating loss that we had last year. But we're back here and we're excited about it. And we got 4 more to win. We'll do it this time.
They don't like us. They don't. I can sense it from Timmy's comments over the last couple of days. They wanted this. They wanted us. And we'll be ready for a challenge.
Bayless.
Champion.
What do you make of this?
Stephen A. Smith, I could be wrong, but I do not think the San Antonio Spurs have a single drop of bad blood or ill will directed at the Miami Heat. The Spurs do not hate or even dislike the Heat because they don't hate or dislike any other team they play against. The Spurs just keep doing what they do. They don't want to fight you. They don't want to trash talk you. They don't want to use any Lance Stevenson / Dennis Rodman antics against you. I actually think the Spurs love LeBron James. I think Pop would, in his heart of hearts, love to one year, coach LeBron James, who would make a great San Antonio Spur. I think Tim Duncan relishes the competition of getting to play against LeBron James, the best player in the world. I think he will be honored. He will consider it a privilege to compete against LeBron James. So I look at this and I say, the only thing that the Spurs hate right now, they hate themselves for what they let happen at the end of Game 6 last year. They despise what they let slip through their fingers in the last 28 seconds, which was an NBA championship. So this is my only takeaway from this. This is my armchair psychology view of LeBron James. Is he trying to be Jordan-esque here? Is he trying to do what Michael Jordan so often did, especially during the playoffs, which is contrive a feud that is not there, that did not exist, just to motivate himself as opposed to making it us versus them, because there's no them in this equation. I don't know, and I couldn't blame LeBron for trying to do that, although I hate to put LeBron James in the same sentence with Michael Jordan, but I'll give him a Jordan-esque tactic here.
The answer to that question is who cares? Whatever works, works.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is that it's the NBA Finals, and anything that you can conjure up, manufactured or otherwise, is something that could potentially work to your advantage. I rarely sit around and play the role of chair psychologist, armchair psychologist, the way that you do. But let me take a stab of it here from the other side. If you're the San Antonio Spurs, and LeBron James and these boys have just conjured this up and they've come up with this, and all of a sudden the media jumps on it and they parade you and bombard you with questions pertaining to that.
Okay.
Can be a bit irritating. Irritating. And if it's irritating, who knows what it would turn into. And if it turns into something even remotely hostile compared to what it used to be, then that's something that could potentially work either for or against Miami, but you take your shots at it. I recall at the conclusion of last year's NBA Finals, one of the things that irritated Skip Bayless most wasn't just Ray Allen's heartbreaking three, wasn't just Tim Duncan's missing the lane and the tip back, but it was also how affectionate and friendly and almost loving Greg Popovich seemed.
Thank you for reminding me. Now I'm really ticked off.
To people like myself and most normal human beings, we have absolutely no problem with it whatsoever, because we're able to look at it and say the finals have concluded. It's incredible sportsmanship. It's not as if the San Antonio Spurs left anything on the table. They gave it all they had. They lost because they collapsed at key pivotal moments, a key miss by Manu Ginobili, a key free throw miss by Kawhi Leonard, Manu Ginobili and his horrific performance in Game 6. Okay, Tony Parker shooting 25% combined in Game 6 and 7. I mean, we could point to a lot of different things, but effort ain't one of them. The San Antonio Spurs did everything they could to win the basketball game. They lost the championship. It broke their hearts, but they just showed incredible professionalism and sportsmanship, which is something most normal folks applaud. Not Skip Bayless.
Not at that moment.
Not at that particular moment, because Skip Bayless was upset. What I'm saying to you is that if you're LeBron and D. Wade and these boys, and that's what you want, whether you believe it or not, if it's what you want the public to believe, I mean, who knows whether or not that could work to your advantage in this series. So I have no problem with it. The gamesmanship, the mental warfare, the tricks, all of this stuff doesn't bother me at all. Coaches engage in it, players engage in it. This is just the latest. Worst case scenario is this is the latest. Who cares? They still got to play starting Thursday.
Okay. My friend Stephen A. Smith just delivered some insightful psychological analysis of his debate partner.
Okay.
Because you're dead right. I'm glad you reminded me of that. I'm still sore from that, like I'm raw from it. Now that you bring it back up, I forgot just how upset I was. This is one small thing I don't love about my San Antonio Spurs. They don't, it's always about them. They're completely passive toward the opponent. They love the opponent. And sometimes to a fault, because it has been quite a while since they actually won the NBA championship. So maybe this is a little different this time. Not that they hate the Heat, but they really hate what happened at the end of Game 6. So I'm all for that. And by the way, I still embrace what Tim or Timmy Duncan said at the end of Game 6 in Oklahoma City, which is, we'll do it this time. I'm like, you don't think that was out of character for a San Antonio Spurs?
That was especially for Tim Duncan.
For him to say that?
It definitely resonated with me. It was very calmly delivered.
It was.
He didn't engage in any demonstrative or bombastic terminology or anything like that. But for Tim Duncan, it might as well have been, because those are things he simply does not say. And it just illuminated for me what I've been saying all along, that not only do they want a championship, but they feel the one that Miami has belongs to them.
Right.
It should have been theirs. And they didn't just want the championship, they wanted Miami. But what I love about it is that, see, for me, Skip, especially in the sports period, but especially in the sport of basketball, which I love so much, I love when things are highlighted to a point where you're able to separate the men from the boys. Normally it's a Game 7, and we get that. But the flip side to it is that it's also moments where people are stomping, not tippy-toeing. They're shouting. They're not whispering. They're letting you know they're coming to take what you have. So for me, when I look at a moment like this, unlike when he lost in the finals to San Antonio when he was a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers, even unlike when he lost to Dallas, because I don't think it's just the Dallas Mavericks that beat the Miami Heat and LeBron James in their first year in Miami. I think the world was coupled with Dallas, and it was just so much that ultimately it was just too much to overcome because of the decision, the residual impact of it all, what he had to deal with that year. I'm remembering how Dwayne Wade never left his side during any interview. He was with him the whole year. LeBron didn't do one-on-ones with anybody, okay? I'm just thinking about those things. and just how the weight of the world was on his shoulders because it was against them, not just the Dallas Mavericks.
Okay.
And ultimately, it proved too much to overcome. This is a particular situation where you have the freedom of it all. You're a two-time champion.
Right.
You completely resurrected yourself. You're a four-time league MVP. Nobody's questioning your greatness. They recognize they recognize he's a champion, and they recognize he's one of the greats.
Okay.
All of that's cemented. So now it's just about you have to ball. And the fact that San Antonio has announced, we know they're coming, but the fact that they have announced that they're coming,
we'll get it.
I know D Wade better than I know LeBron. And I know that D Wade's the kind of dude that goes like this. Okay. And with a smile on his face.
Totally agree.
We'll see what
he's
LeBron
the
does.
one I fear with we'll do it this time.
That's right.
Because he didn't have anything or much to say about it yesterday.
Doesn't
Chris
have.
Bosh had a lot to say. He said, hey, when we need to lock back in, we will remember that quote. Okay, that's a lot of just talk,
Right.
okay? But Dwayne Wade with that little half smile of his, that's the guy I fear with this quote. But I'm going to go back to end this up with my armchair psychoanalysis of LeBron James. I think he's running out of some mental gas right now, and I do not blame him. And you and I both have talked several times during the playoffs about odd games where all of a sudden you'll say, man, he was just flat tonight. I don't know what happened to him. Well, we saw it in the finals last year. Did we not see a couple of flat, sort of inexplicable LeBron games last year where we were talking about, where was he tonight? What was up with that game? Even game one. Remember, he was a little flat in game one. I think he's still reaching inside himself for any, again, Jordan-esque
Motivation.
Yeah, listen, it's like his own tactic, his own Lance Stevenson. He's doing Lance on himself. Just some way to push his own button, which is, oh, they don't like us. He knows in his heart of hearts that Pop loves him like Pop loves Tim Duncan. I think it's close between those two.
It doesn't matter. San Antonio, that's not their makeup. They don't conduct themselves that way. They don't get into any of that stuff. They just perform. That's what they do. So that's why it probably comes across as being manufactured by LeBron. But in the end, it does not matter. I don't care what he has to do. I don't care if he has to lie about one of them stealing something from his house. I could care less. I'm just saying. Well, the way the San Antonio Spurs are, they probably they never stole a day in their life. But the point that I'm trying to make to you, the point that I'm trying to make to you is whatever he has to manufacture to get himself ready.
I'll buy that.
I don't care. I'm not judging him on that. What I'm going to judge him by is how he performs. And in the end, I believe LeBron is going to show up. He is going to perform big time. He's going to be ready because he will need to be ready. Because even at his best, there's a legitimate chance that at least a couple of games, the Miami Heat are going to get annihilated. When the San Antonio Spurs start raining those threes on you, there's at least a couple of games. I could see San Antonio winning by 25 or 30. I mean, at least a couple of games. But you got to win 4 to win the championship. And I don't think that's happening.
That means LeBron has to come to play 4 times. And I don't think that's happening.
Well, he did last year.
Game 1.
That was last year.
Thursday, ABC, 9 Eastern. Stephen A., you mentioned yesterday that you felt that the road to the finals for the Heat was easy, perhaps being an advantage for them. So let's talk about that. They played the Bobcats and the Nets in the first 2 rounds. And if those teams were in the West, they would not have made the playoffs. No argument, obviously, folks, that the East is not as tough as the West. Spurs had a very tough first round against the Mavericks to win in 7, Trailblazers, and then OKC. Let's consider the road to the finals. Explain why you feel the team you think has the advantage.
Because I think that when you're an experienced bunch, rest is the ultimate thing. Resting your body, being able to heal, not being exhausted by the mental challenges. We just brought up how LeBron may have been mentally fatigued, exhausted, et cetera, at times. I certainly felt that was the case with him in Game 5 against the Indiana Pacers, simply because he's had to carry the Heat all season long. Dwayne Wade missed 28 games. There have been games where Bosh didn't show up, and I think Bosh is a quality player, and I think he's a key in this series, and we'll talk about him a little bit later on in the show. But I'm saying all of this to say that yes, San Antonio, sometimes going through the terrain, it's almost like a boxer. If you get hit, then you're accustomed to getting hit, so you know what it feels like and you can take it. But there's also those punches that take a lot of punches, and you can end up getting yourself knocked out because the punishment that you've absorbed, your body just said enough's enough. I look at San Antonio and what they had to go through. They handled Portland far easier than most of us thought. They definitely, beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. We understand that. But when I look at the Miami Heat, You ran through Charlotte, which was no matchup for you, especially after Al Jefferson's plantar fascia. So then the second round, the Brooklyn Nets. Boy, was I disappointed. I expected, even without Brook Lopez, I expected more. We've now learned in the aftermath that Darren Williams had to have both of his ankles operated on, so he wasn't 100%. But you had in KG. Listen, KG, Father Time is undefeated. And clearly it caught up to him because we got to a point where we were happy that KG scored. And so when you look at it from that perspective and you look at the fact that Paul Pierce has been around for so many years, even though he's big time in closing moments over the course of 48 minutes for an entire series, he's not going to be what he used to be. And so Brooklyn wasn't what we anticipated or hoped they would be. So you had a 5-game series there, one in which LeBron dropped 49 in one game, by the way, after Brooklyn talked smack to him. And then after that, you go to the Eastern Conference Finals, where the Indiana Pacers were nothing but a shell of themselves. Nothing what we expected, and we saw that coming for the last 2 months prior to the Eastern Conference Finals. Paul George, as Larry Bird acknowledged yesterday, is not there yet as a superstar. Roy Hibbert, everybody's conceding, needs to get tutelage and counseling from a Hall of Fame center. George Hill is not a point guard. Lance Stevenson is a head case, even though I think that people have been entirely too hard on him. Lance Stevenson deserves his money, and I hope he gets it. And so when you look at it from that perspective, the Indiana Pacers simply weren't what they were supposed to be. So if you're the Miami Heat, Charlotte, Brooklyn, Indiana, you really didn't have that tough of a road. It really wasn't mentally tough. And as a result of that, you're not just rested physically, but you're rested mentally and emotionally. And to be ready to go up against the San Antonio Spurs, you need all of those things when you're an experienced bunch. You need the work and the experience and the repetition if you're a younger team. But when you are an older team like Miami, you need the rest. They have it, and I think because of it, it puts them in a better situation to win the finals.
This is a fascinating phenomenon to me, and I do not completely disagree with the points you just made, because clearly we're dealing with a team going for a three-peat, so it's not like they haven't done this before. We just watched them do it twice before. But never before have we had 2 more different roads to the final. The Spurs road, I think, was through the deepest and toughest Western Conference playoffs I can ever remember, all the way down to the 8 seed Dallas Mavericks. So the Spurs, as you recall, had to fight through 7 games through Dirk and Vince Carter and Rick Carlisle. And then, they made fairly short work of the Portland Trail Blazers. But listen, Damian Lillard and LaMarcus Aldridge, they're no jokes, to quote you. They're not exactly scrubs. They are serious business. I'm going to remind everybody again, I had to sit through a whole 2-hour show at the All-Star break on All-Star Friday, and every guest we had picked the Portland Trail Blazers to win the West. So it took, 5 games for San Antonio to dispense with them, but I think it took a little out of it. Remember, we're dealing now with a 38-year-old superstar in Tim Duncan and an almost 37-year-old Manu Ginobili. And Tony Parker's no spring chicken now in his early 30s. So then the Spurs run up against their arch nemesis with 2 25-year-old superstars. I'm going to give you today superstars because they're ranked as 2 of the top 5 players in the world, in obviously Durant and Westbrook. And Ibaka had been their boogeyman nemesis. They had not been able to solve Ibaka for really about 3 years. So you don't think that was a tough road? And I'm going to remind you, Chris Paul and Blake Griffin are not in the finals. Dwight Howard and James Harden are not in the finals. In our audience right now, those are their stars. That's who they, a lot of people wanted to see those people in the finals. The Spurs are in the finals, and it took a lot out of them. But I'm going to look at it as glass half full because no Spurs team has ever been more fire-tested to get to a finals, to get ready for a finals, than this team has. To me, Miami's playoffs are just starting, and I'm not sure that's a great thing. I'm not sure Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley right now are sitting back saying, boy, I'm glad we got to rest and just cruise control through those. Because all of a sudden the RPM is going to go way up on Thursday night in San Antonio, and it might be hard in the beginning, at least for a half, for the Heat to match the RPM that the Spurs are playing at. Because, listen, that Game 6 in Oklahoma City, that was the most impressive win of any team throughout any final, throughout any of the playoffs. That was so impressive that they're going to carry that over with 5 days to rest themselves. I think you're going to see the Spurs at an extremely high level in Game 1, and I'm not sure the Heat will be able to match that.
Well, first of all, the Heat will match anything with anybody over the course of the series because they're not going to get swept. They'll figure out the way to win a game. And if they figure out a way to win one game, chances are they'll figure out a way to win 2, 3, and possibly 4. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is that when you look at the San Antonio Spurs and the points that you made are valid, but 7 games against Dallas, 5 games against Portland, 6 games against Oklahoma City. Dallas is just exceptionally well coached by one of the great coaches in this game, and Rick Carlisle, who doesn't get enough credit. Portland is a young team. Damian Lillard can ball. LaMarcus Aldridge is a stud. Young team. You know, I like Wes Matthews, by the way. I like him a lot. I like him a great deal. And Mo Williams is a good component on that team as well.
And by the way, he pulled his groin, and I think the Spurs got a little break on that.
That's right, okay.
Yeah.
But then you also have Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, and we understand that. None of them are LeBron. None of them are 2-time champions.
I buy that.
And and again, I keep emphasizing this point whenever I speak about this series. You are coming to take what he has. You are coming to take what D. Wade has.
That's true.
And you got to remember, Skip, a few months ago, I sat down one-on-one with Dwayne Wade. Yeah, he's going to play in all likelihood. He didn't rule out retirement. Dwayne Wade's got a lot of things going on in his life that are very, very positive. Dwayne Wade has a lot of things going on that could propel him to say, I don't know if I need to do this anymore. If he wins, he's a 4-time champion. He's unquestionably the greatest Heat ever in terms of the collective body of work that he's put forth. Certainly he's not the greatest player on the Miami Heat right now, but in terms of his body of work, there is no one that measures up. Okay? And so when you look at it from that perspective, we don't know what Dwayne Wade is going to do. Therefore, we don't know what his mentality is. And we need to understand that when crunch time arrives, it's not like Eric Spoelstra is going to say, LeBron, can you save us? He's going to say, D. Wade. Here you go. You understand? So when you've got D. Wade in the mix, okay, now we have to look at the San Antonio Spurs and say, we understand and respect the fact that, Ginobili, you ain't what you was in the finals. You lost some weight. You got yourself in shape. You look considerably better than you did last year. And we expect you to perform. Danny Green with your 27 threes. Okay, we got that. We got that. We get all of that. Kawhi Leonard, we know that you're a young stud with a lot of promise, even though you went 2 or 3 games when you only averaged 7 points against Oklahoma City. But this is Dwayne Wade.
Okay.
And let's keep that in mind and understand that LeBron James is not alone. Dwayne Wade is going to have something to say about whether or not Miami's going. And by the way, last point, experience sometimes is the best teacher. Hey, they lost in Dallas 2 years ago. You don't think Dwayne Wade sits back and goes like this? 3 years ago, rather. You don't think Dwayne Wade sits back and goes like this? There are things that I could have done differently. I was helping bring LeBron along. LeBron elevated himself to that level and showed it in Oklahoma against Oklahoma City and ultimately against the Spurs. But I might have sat back a little bit. I might have done too little myself in trying to facilitate, the maturation and the growth of both Bosh and LeBron in terms of what we're trying to accomplish here. Now it's about, okay, I got a legacy of my own. Okay. The time is running out. Let me don't think that I'm going to just sit back and watch or depend on LeBron. There's something I could do too. Dwayne Wade will have something to say about these finals. Okay.
But yesterday, you hinged your entire Heat in 7-game pick on this show on the greatest player on the planet, LeBron James.
Not my entire.
Okay, but that's all I heard.
That's all you heard. Okay. But I mentioned D. Wade yesterday, too.
Okay, here's my takeaway. My bottom line to this whole discussion. I do not fear, I picked the Spurs, okay? I picked the Spurs in 6.
You did.
I do not fear LeBron James. I respect him, but I do not fear him. I fear Dwayne Wade. Wow. And the more you talk about him, the more afraid I get of my pick, because that's the bad man in this series.
Well, listen. LeBron is a bad man, too. And you should be ashamed of yourself for saying that when the last time you saw the man in this predicament, it was Game 7 of an NBA Finals, where he dropped 37.
They were emotionally shocked.
You can't say that.
I can't.
Let me tell you why. You can't say that. If Tim Duncan hits that shot in the lane.
I forgot about the little tip.
That's right, and the little tip that followed. Skip, that was less than 2 minutes left, and the game was tied. But if that's flat, I'm sorry. Listen. Don't give me flat with San Antonio. I understand what happened in Game 6.
Level.
Skip, I understand what happened in Game 6. But they showed up in Game 7, too. But so did Dwayne Wade. And LeBron had 37. You need to respect that man more than you have. You really need to stop it.
I said I respected him.
Okay. Well, part of respecting him is understanding that he's somebody you need to fear.
No fear. No fear.
I suspect.
LeBron James, I do not fear you.
I suspect there will be at least 3 games where LeBron will make you eat those words.
Skip Bayless does not fear LeBron James. He fears Dwayne Wade.
All LeBron James has to do is play. Leave Skip Bayless to me.
You gonna get him?
I'll be there.
He gonna get.
I'll be there.
I'm not sure you're gonna be in San Antonio.
I'll show up. No, I'll show up. I might not be there Game 1, but I'll show up. I'll show up.
First take hitting the roads, ladies and gentlemen, for the finals. Join us starting this Thursday, June 5th, live from the Hard Rock in San Antonio along the Riverwalk. Then when the series shifts to Miami, you can join us at the Clevelander Hotel on South Beach. First take is on the road. You got to come be a part of it. It's always a good time. Transitioning here. Here's the question. What separates good from elite when it comes to NFL quarterbacks? Well, how accurate they are under pressure. For instance, Manning had an accuracy rate of 69% in 2013, and at Brady's peak in 2010, he led the league with an accuracy rate of 71% on passes under pressure. Since then, Brady's declined, folks. Last year, he was just 57.6% accurate when it comes to passes under pressure. That's 28th in the league. Sam Monson of Pro Football Focus, writing for ESPN.com Insider, summarized it this way. Brady is no longer an elite quarterback. Manning is the standard by which all quarterbacks are measured. And Rodgers and Breeze remain worthy of places on the quarterback Mount Rushmore. But Brady, blasphemy, has slipped below passers like Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger. All right, Stephen A., looking at some of these stats. Does this mean that Brady's no longer a top 5 quarterback?
Let me say this. Although I'm on the record saying that I believe that the New England Patriots are truly America's team and not the Dallas Cowboys.
We don't care about that.
Okay?
What?
I've often talked about how Tom Brady will tap dance in the pocket like the late Gregory Hines, God rest his soul.
I'm applauding that line. It's been like 3 months since I heard
That's right.
that.
And when you put pressure on him, definitely I'm absolutely on the money. I mean, he tap dances with the best of them. There's no doubt about it. And he is certainly not that bad man that he is, Aaron Rodgers, who's a bad man. I don't care what anybody said. He's the best in the game. Now, I love me some Aaron Rodgers. There's no quarterback, including Peyton Manning, that I would take ahead of Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry. He's a bad man. Now, having said all of that.
Why are you giggling?
It is blasphemous to say this about
Thank you.
It really, really is.
The man has seen the light.
Listen. I can mess with Tom Brady all I want to. And nothing compared to how I mess with the Dallas Cowboys. But this dude is an elite quarterback of the highest order. Over the last 4 seasons, they've won at least 12 games. They've won at least 12 games over 6 over the last 8 seasons. Tom Brady, yes, he has been without a Super Bowl championship since 2004. But when I look at some of the pieces he has had to work with, I mean, obviously Randy Moss came in there in 2007, but this is a man that won Super Bowls with Troy Brown and those guys. Not to knock them because they could play. But I'm just saying in terms of the elite receivers in the game, he's never had them outside of Randy Moss. When you look at last year, the Julian Edelmans of the world, after you let go of the Wes Welkers of the world, okay, you got Ridley as your running back, or it was Blunt, depending on who was in Bill Belichick's doghouse. The list goes on and on. The fact is that Tom Brady is what enabled you to remain afloat, particularly when the defense on so many occasions was more than suspect, to be kind. And which is egregious, by the way, considering the greatness of Bill Belichick, the fact that defense is his signature, the fact that he won Super Bowls as a coordinator on the defensive side of the ball, how their defense has suffered so much over the years is something that he has to be called on the carpet for. And I say that respectfully because I know about the greatness of Bill Belichick, and I don't question it, okay? But Tom Brady was and is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the fact that people will point to, well, pressure, he's only completes 45% of his passes when he's under pressure. But stop it. Here's my bottom line. I'm going to roll with my boy Skip on this when we talk about the eye test. That Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks, I don't think that would have happened like that if Tom Brady was the quarterback.
Right.
Now, I'm not blaming Peyton Manning, because you had dudes that were petrified. They were scared to death. And they know who they are in the Denver Broncos. They should be ashamed of themselves. And by the way, even though I'm not going to accuse him of being scared, there is still an APB out for the now New York Jets wide receiver, Eric Decker, who was a member of the Denver Broncos at the time. Yep. We saw him before the Super Bowl because he did an interview. We saw him, we heard about him after the Super Bowl because there was a quote. So there is evidence he was there at MetLife Stadium, except for those 60 minutes when the game was actually taking place, because we couldn't find him, okay? And all I'm saying is, even though that's the case, Peyton Manning looked incredibly rattled. And I don't blame him because the defense was legit and nobody was getting open. But I just don't believe that with Tom Brady as your quarterback, that it goes down like that. I'm not saying New England would not have lost, because I believe they would have. But they wouldn't have went down like that. They wouldn't have gone down like that. So to me, Tom Brady is still elite. I don't want to hear anything about a decline because, to be quite honest with you, I don't think it's fair to try and quantify that when you strip the man of his weapons. Give him some weapons who are healthy on the field with him, then come talk to me about what Tom Brady is and is not.
Okay, but to underline what you pointed out, you did repeat your late, great Gregory Hines line. Tap dances. And once upon a time on this network, our friend Ryan Clark uttered the infamous quote that Brady sees ghosts. And that's the way the Steelers viewed Tom Brady. And by the way, against the Steelers.
And isn't that when he dropped 55?
He was mad.
When he dropped 55
for 400 last year.
Yeah.
All right. Look, they all see ghosts. Peyton Manning sees ghosts, too. He just sees them faster than Tom Brady does because Peyton gets rid of the ball quicker than Tom, who will hang in and try to make a play that he probably shouldn't try to make. Now, back to the article at hand. I do not know Sam Monson, so I don't want to make this sound like some kind of personal attack on him. I'm sure he's a fine fellow. But after I read his statistical breakdown of Tom Brady, and I emphasize the word breakdown because it was, I had to get up and walk around the room about 3 times just to calm down. Because I'm saying, time out. And to tell you the graph that I fixated on, the paragraph, could we put that up right now and let me read this? This is right in the middle of his statistical breakdown. Out of nowhere, he says, people point to the his lack of receivers in 2013 as a reason for his comparative down year. But it's worth noting that it was also the poorest performance from the New England offensive line for several years. The unit posted its worst pass blocking efficiency figure, blah, 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 since this is Pro Football Focus, is that what it's called? Since Pro Football Focus has been grading tape. And at best, the unit was in the middle of the pack when it came to protecting Tom Brady. Well, as I read this, I kept waiting for the but. People say he didn't have any receivers, but we shouldn't worry about that. Or people, well, I can show you how bad his offensive line was, but we should discount. No, he doesn't have any buts in here. He just lets this paragraph stand in the middle of the statistical breakdown, and it completely discredits and disqualifies, to me, the rest of his opinion that we come away with from his statistical backup. So, to me, I'm going to say it again. This is laughable. I still think he is the best quarterback in pro football, and I thought last year was Tom Brady's greatest year yet, because he had laughably bad receivers and because the defense was decimated Because you've heard all this before. Mayo, Wilfork, Tommy Kelly, Brandon Spikes went on IR for the playoffs, and we all know that Aqib Talib, God bless him, in Denver now,
kept getting hurt in big moments.
He was there and he wasn't there. He was there. You couldn't trust him. You couldn't count on him. So think about this. Tom Brady got the New England Patriots last year within one game of the Super Bowl with laughably bad receivers and little or no defense. What an accomplishment. And just to point up just how bad the receiving corps was, he did have Gronkowski for 7 whole games. And when he had Gronk, they were really good. But when he didn't, he was throwing to Julian Edelman, a former 7th-round draft pick, and as you well know, a smaller college quarterback in college. And he hit him 105 times last year. Julian Edelman, are you kidding me? You know how I raved about Danny Amendola before the year? I said he'll be a little better than Wes Welker. Well, he couldn't stay healthy.
Which is what I told you.
He hobbled through 12
before the
games.
season. I told you he wasn't going to stay healthy.
All right. And then the 2 kids, Aaron Dobson, Kenbrell Tompkins, they lasted 12 games and were beat up at the end of the year and didn't contribute much down the stretch. Shane Vereen made it only 8 games, and he's a real threat coming out of the backfield. So my point is, who are you throwing to? Nobody to speak of. You made a start out of Julian Edelman, and remember the games like Denver, you're down 24-0 at half. Remember that Sunday night game? And in the second half alone, you score 31 unanswered on the Super Bowl-bound Denver Broncos defense. And you'd go 24 of 33 in the second half in overtime for 263 and 3 touchdowns. Wow! I thought Tom Brady was sensational, his best year yet. And then somebody comes out of the left field and says, no, he's not a top 5 quarterback. Yes, he is. He is.
Not mentioned in that article.
He gives the one disqualifying paragraphs, but there's no but there. So we agree for very different reasons, but I say next question.
You don't agree.
Well,
I'm done.
The thing about it is I'm looking at some of Tom Brady's numbers here, and I'm looking at what they're talking about when they allude to protection or lack thereof, and how it forces him, his completion percentage to dip significantly, etc. I'm looking at a man that, with the exception of 2008, has missed 1 game.
And that was
one game
about the whole year.
One game. This guy has been quarterbacking the New England Patriots since 2001. And in that year, Skip, he missed 1 game. He didn't start 2. He started 14, not 16. But that's it. Outside of that, since 2002, Tom Brady has missed 1 game. I'm sorry, not 1 game. The 1 season in 2008.
1 season,
He missed the 2008 season because he got hurt against Kansas City in the season opener. Outside of that, the man has not missed a game since 2002. And you talk about how can you question his toughness? I don't understand that.
Okay.
I don't get that.
So you agree with me, Tom Brady is still the best quarterback in pro football?
Aaron Rodgers.
He didn't say that.
That's what he said.
Aaron Rodgers.
Making a strong case.
Tom Brady.
Rodgers?
First of all, Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers is a considerably better athlete. Because he's more evasive. He can run with the football, not just throw it. Tom Brady isn't even in his class in that regard. You know this. And in terms of the ability to throw the football, as much as Tom Brady is big time, there is nobody, including Peyton Manning, including Drew Brees, there is nobody that flings that football better than Aaron Rodgers. Nobody.
Aaron Rodgers could not have done for the Patriots last year what Tom Brady did for the Patriots.
Excuse me. If Aaron Rodgers were on the New England Patriots with Bill Belichick as his coach with the same personnel that Tom Brady had, same injuries, everything, the New England Patriots would have been in the Super Bowl last year.
Nope, wrong. False.
I'm telling you right now.
You know, Aaron Rodgers would have gotten frustrated. He would have gotten upset.
Let me tell you what Aaron Rodgers would have done.
He would have.
Aaron Rodgers would have figured out a way. First of all, Aaron Rodgers would have ran with the football a few times, got a few extra first downs.
He would have gotten
kept drives running, which would have moved the chains, and it would have made things far more interesting. But let me tell you something right now. Aaron Rodgers, he's a bad.
I haven't heard him say that before.
There's only one bad man right now.
And that would be.
I love Tom Brady.
He said that's to Wayne Wade.
He is not Aaron Rodgers.
Dwayne Wade's a bad man.
Okay, really quickly. Brady, according to Monsoon, remains good enough to keep the Patriots in the Super Bowl mix.
At the end of the day, Pop realizes they were a couple of bad bounces and a Ray Allen three-pointer away from winning that finals last year. And I think you're going to see them play the same type of game plan. Back off LeBron James, make him deliver on his weakest point, which is those long jump shots.
Okay. You heard what he said. That's the strategy. Should they do that, Stephen A. Smith? Same strategy from last year?
Of course you have. Of course you have to do that. LeBron James is 6'8", 250 or 260, depending on which report you believe, or standing next to him. Every time I'm standing next to him, I see 260.
Okay.
And I don't see 250.
Okay.
You see 270.
I see 260. The boy, he's a big boy. Okay. But what I will tell you is this. You have to do that because LeBron James is one of the elite finishers in the game. And he can take your heart out. If you can't stop him from going to the hole, something's going to happen to you. And one of the things that they're going to have to contend with now is, in case no one has noticed, LeBron's a better post player now than he was last year.
He is.
He plays better with his back to the basket now. That's going to be a problem if you're a Kawhi Leonard. It's going to be a problem even if you're Boris Diaw. Now, Boris Diaw gave him some trouble last year. He only shot like 14% from the field when Boris Diaw was defending him. But do you really think that's going to happen to him again? Do you really think that LeBron James, knowing that he shot 14% against Boris Diaw, is going to turn around and let that happen for a second consecutive NBA Finals? I'm going to bet my money on LeBron in that situation. So I don't see that happening. So if you are Pop, you're talking about Tiago Splitter and Tim Duncan and their length and that being a problem and how they can collapse on you. Ultimately, if you make sure they clog the lane, it forces LeBron to shoot jump shots. And if he's doing that, LeBron is a scorer. He's not a shooter. That's not his game. And so if you force him into doing that, it can rip your heart out, but it can also help you if he's not on, because he's not always on from the perimeter. So you have to be careful about that. But at the same time, again, even though I'm the San Antonio Spurs and I would employ that philosophy, the flip side to it is that if I'm Eric Spoelstra, I just make sure that the Ray Allens and the Shane Battiers are on the floor with LeBron. Shane Battier, Ray Allen, Dwayne Wade, of course, and whether it's Birdman or somebody else, you make sure there's some size on the floor with the LeBron, because believe it or not, even though you're giving up some size, I don't think we have much to worry about if we, let's say Spoelstra countered by saying, you know what, LeBron, even though you don't like to do this, we're going to have you some minutes down low defending Tiago Splitter.
No,
that's a playoff.
Your friend.
That's a playoff. I mean, he doesn't have to worry about it. It's not like Popovich is going to call Tiago Splitter's number and say, Tiago, take me to the promised land. So you know what? That could actually work to Miami's advantage, because LeBron won't have to. He might have to work boxing out, but he ain't going to have to work but so much in terms of defending him straight up. I might counter with something like that if I'm Spoelstra. But in the end, to answer the question directly, the right thing to do is to force LeBron to shoot jump shots.
By the way, the difference-making maneuver in the last series in the Western Conference Finals was the benching of your new friend, Tiago Splitter. Am I right about that?
Matt Bonner, because it pulled Ibaka away from the basket. But the reason why that wouldn't work in this series, Skip, is because Miami doesn't have elite shot blockers. So because of that, you don't really have to make that move. It's not necessary, because who are you trying to pull away from the basket?
But you know what? After Game 2 last year, the finals, if memory serves, I'm a little off the top of my head, I think they started going away from Tiago after LeBron blocked his shot. Do we have that handy,
That was
Brian?
a big time block. That was a big time block.
Oh, we don't have it? Okay, I thought they had it. But you remember the block?
Yeah, it was
psychologically devastating to Tiago Splitter. Well, it was to Tiago, I think. Okay, now we have it. Just to remind people just how bad this was.
It was a good block. It's a great block.
Okay, here it is.
Here we go.
Great block.
Here it is.
Oh, boy. I'm uncomfortable.
I had a good view of it.
That hurts.
It hurts?
That hurts. That hurts my psyche.
Oh, boy. He's not going to be nice to you, Stephen A. anymore.
Okay. All right, we've seen enough of that. Now back to the question at hand.
Should Pop employ the same strategy?
I'm about to pay LeBron James the highest compliment I can pay him.
Wow.
I'm going to put him in the conversation with Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson, because he has done something that they both did in their careers. LeBron James has been so dedicated every offseason to shooting 1 million jump shots, or however many he can shoot in an offseason, wherever he goes, even on vacation, taking the ball, taking the shooting coach with you, spending 2-3 hours in the gym, even on vacation, shooting thousands and thousands of jump shots. He has improved his jump shot year after year after year. never better than this year. So my answer to this question is you cannot do what you tried to do last year. And certainly you cannot do what you did in, what year was it, 07 against Cleveland in the finals? When their battle cry against LeBron in 07, that was just LeBron and company with the Cavaliers, was no dunks. You cannot let this man get to the rim, especially in the 2 games in Cleveland. It was a sweep because you can't let him detonate the crowd. So they just, you're just mainly keeping him away from the rim because he didn't even try to shoot as many jump shots.
Right.
Last year, let's look at the numbers. In the 4 wins last year, outside the paint in the finals, outside the paint, LeBron shot 45% in the 4 wins. Now, in the 3 losses, he only made 21% of his jump shots, which is pretty pathetic. So that's you can say that's the win and lose stat, right? Does the jumper fall or does it not fall? What is my lingering memory of Game 7? Greg Popovich on the bench gesturing at Kawhi Leonard. Get off him. Get off him. Dare him. They were just daring him to shoot. And what happened near the end of Game 7? He hit the clincher. Remember the jumper he hit? It wasn't, I'm not talking about, it's not like a walk-off shot, but it was the one that clinched the win. He made what was it, maybe a 18, 19-foot jump shot?
Yeah.
And it was a big-time shot by a guy who didn't used to be able to shoot that shot. So to me, you just got to live with this. You got to mix and match everybody. Some Kawhi, some Diaw, some Danny Green. Remember, Danny Green was on him when he missed the late jump shot. Right. Remember that one?
That's right.
Okay.
And then ran back.
And Pop's never forgiven him.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's forgiven him now.
Yeah.
All right.
It took him a while, but he's all right.
He's over it.
But I'm just hoping that LeBron does try to post up whoever's on him because this whole strategy of, just dare him to shoot, I'm not sure that works anymore against this guy. Seriously.
Wow.
And I give him the highest marks because you saw Michael Jordan early in his career. He didn't have much of a jumper. Magic had no jumper, and he developed that little set shot, but he could make it. About halfway through his career, he started dropping it like it was free throws.
Yeah.
So I give him that.
With the
I got
objectivity.
to. That's just straight objectivity.
Oh, that's good. I'm proud of you.
Oh, yes, we're proud of you.
Rare
Next
moments.
question.
Yes.
There are rare moments you're capable of it. I applaud you for that.
Rare moments.
But again, you still want LeBron to shoot those jumpers instead of getting to the hole.
Well, you don't want him to dunk.
That's right.
The last thing you want him to do is
Get the crowd
dunk,
involved.
especially in Miami.
USA Today Sports' Nate Davis put together record projections for all 32 NFL teams. A breakdown of which team will win each division, winner of the wild card round and divisional round. In the championship round, the Colts beat the Broncos, and the Seahawks beat the Packers, with the Seahawks beating the Colts in Super Bowl 49. Colts versus Seahawks. We should note that Davis correctly predicted the Seahawks would beat the Broncos last season. So we asked this question, do you agree with his pick? NFL analyst, sometimes expert, oftentimes good friend, Mark Brunell, joining us. Has a lot of
not always good friend.
Yes,
Not always good friend.
I don't see
Not
him
always expert.
Not always expert.
Always good friend.
Okay, then we'll reverse it.
Perfect.
Agree with the pick?
I don't agree with the pick. I like the fact that he picked Seattle, but it's hard to be the hunted. It's hard to be the hunted. It's hard to go into the season with a big target right on your chest.
Yep.
The Seattle Seahawks have a formula, and it works. And if it's not broke, you don't fix it. They run the football very well with Marshawn Lynch. They play solid defense, incredible defense. They've got a good young quarterback, without a doubt. That young quarterback's going to be asked to do a lot more this year, because if I'm a defense, and defensive coordinators right now are spending all the time, how are we going to beat the Seattle Seahawks? Well, you beat them. Obviously, you got to score some points, which is tough, but you stop the run. You load the box, and you make Russell Wilson throw. If he can develop as a passer, we're going to ask more of him. If he can develop as a passer, continue to make good decisions, and his numbers were great last year, but be more efficient on third down, stay in that pocket, then they've got a chance to get to the Super Bowl. The Colts. Andrew Luck, rising star. I think we'll look back on Andrew Luck's career and we'll see 2 or 3 Super Bowls. I really believe that. This guy.
Stop.
I'm not finished.
No, I'm saying,
Wow.
Yeah.
Keep that last line.
Wow. Oh, boy.
Right at him.
I will look
Say
right
it
at Skip.
Say it again.
How many?
Andrew Luck will look back on his career and he'll have at least 2 or 3 Super Bowl rings. I really believe that. I believe he's the complete package. I mean, he's got some mobility, but he stands in the pocket. He's intelligent. He's got everything you want. But as far as the Colts are concerned, as long as Peyton Manning is wearing a Broncos jersey, and as long as Tom Brady, and you all talked about, Andrew's not going to see it right away. And you all this talk about Tom Brady not being in the league, you got to be crazy.
Crazy.
That's just crazy.
Crazy
He's one of the best in
Crazy
business.
talk.
Thank you.
But Andrew Luck's time is coming.
When he's like 35 or 36.
Oh,
Well, I would say into his,
Maybe
I would say into his
roll.
30s, he'll have his time. But in the next couple of years, I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots and the Broncos were in it simply because of their quarterbacks, who are phenomenal.
So, no, you don't agree with that?
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
That's my answer.
So, Stephen A.
I agree with your assessment about Seattle. Russell Wilson's going to be asked to do more because if I'm a team going up against the Seattle Seahawks, I'm like, their defense is elite.
Yeah.
Our offense is going to be able to do but so much. What do we need to do to neutralize this man right here? Which is why I was so surprised that Denver didn't show up. I was a little surprised that Seattle's defense did what it did because I expected Peyton Manning and those guys to get a couple of touchdowns. You know, to score about 17 to 20. I'm saying,
I know.
Score about 17 to 20. I knew they weren't going to score 30 or 40, but I expected them to score 17 to 20 points, okay? But I really, really did not expect Seattle's offense to be effective. And that's what disappointed me about Denver's defense. And to me, that has a lot to do with John Fox because I'm a big proponent of what's your signature? What makes you who you are? Why are you sitting in the head coaching position? Because of what you've done as a coordinator in most situations. So if defense is your signature and your defense doesn't show up, I hold that against you. I don't care that you have a coordinator. You got a head coaching job because you were a defensive mind. So I hold that against John Fox. But I'm of the mindset. I think about San Francisco, man. I'm a San Francisco guy. I really, really believe that San Francisco can make some noise. He's got him here as 11-5. I've got that flipped. I've got Seattle being 11-5 and the 49ers being 12-4.
Really?
This upcoming season. Wow. I think that the 49ers are going to get it to another level personally. Going to the AFC. Let me say this. First of all, Aaron Rodgers is better than Tom Brady. Tom Brady's elite, but Aaron Rodgers is better in my estimation. That's number one.
How many times do I have to sit here and hear this in one show?
Respectful.
Secondly, I don't know what he's talking about with the Jets winning 10 games. I don't get that part. But to answer your assertions about Andrew Luck, not only do I agree, I'm going to be more bold in my prognostication. I don't think, maybe another year. And then after that, after next season, I think in 2 years, Andrew Luck will have defined himself as the best quarterback in the AFC. That's what I believe.
Wow.
I believe he's that good. I believe that, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. I'm just talking about Father Time. That's all. I'm thinking that even if they dip slightly, they're still elite. But I think that Andrew Luck is going to be that big time. You just got to do something with the Colts defense. You got to give him something to work with. But Andrew Luck as a talent, I think we will be talking about him and his elevation, and I think he's going to be the man in the AFC. That's what I want to say about that.
Okay, my position on Andrew Luck has simply been he's the most prematurely overhyped superstar quarterback I can ever remember because he got such hype coming out of the draft. People were expecting what you're talking about, his rookie year. And he had the second most total turnovers in the National Football League to Mark Sanchez. Then all I heard last year, this will be Andrew Luck's coming out party. This will be his year. And in 2 playoff games, he threw not 4 or 5. He threw 7 interceptions in 2 playoff games. 3 and 4. Mere bag of shell. That's all. Just dismiss him. I didn't sit there and say that his rookie year he was going to be this. I said he was going to be better than RG3. Okay, so now you're saying maybe a couple more years. So that means 4 years. We'll have to wait 4 years before Andrew Luck lives up to the hype.
No. Well, again, it's the sport of football. It's the ultimate team game. Yes. There are various components that have to come into the equation, which you understand significantly better than me. All I'm saying to you is that when I look at Andrew Luck, I look at his ability to fling the football, his strength, his ability to stand in the pocket under duress and make throws, his athleticism, his ability to evade, run out of the pocket, and move the chains with his feet, not just his arms. His intellect, his IQ is just there. And more importantly, his composure. I'm not knocking RG3 because I'm a fan of RG3's, and I think that RG3 is going to resurrect himself. But I think that, especially last season, RG3 proved that the comparisons to Andrew Luck were unwarranted. You know why? Because RG3 doesn't want just football. He wants brand RG3 to elevate with his game. Andrew Luck just doesn't care. Little quick aside story. I'm in Indianapolis.
It better be quick.
Because you didn't get to go.
I apologize, because I know I'm going. I'm in Indianapolis months ago. And I just walked down, I mean, the little bit of hair I got left. I went to get a haircut. And, everybody was in there all excited. What happened? Andrew Luck just rolled up in there. They talk about he's just walking downtown, minding his business. He doesn't care about all that stuff these other guys appear to care about. You hear about Colin Kaepernick for the wrong reasons, even though he appears to be innocent of that stuff. You hear about RG3 in some degrees for the wrong reasons. You heard about Russell Wilson for the right reasons, but he's receiving hype, and some people say he's feeding off the Seattle's defense. Andrew Luck's just Andrew Luck, baby. And he just performs.
All right. So answer me this. Riddle me this. When those two were healthy as rookies in the National Football League, who had the better season, rookie season?
RG3.
Thank you.
I also think he had a better discussion.
Better team?
I think so.
They were terrible the year before.
I think so.
He turned them around. They won the division.
I know that.
And they should have won. They were about to beat the Seattle Seahawks.
Emotional high. Chuck Pagano being ill, coming back from that. Bruce Arians doing a fabulous job, etc. But in terms of what RG3 did with the weapons that Washington had and being in the NFC East didn't hurt, all of those things come into the equation.
If I'm a coach, I'll take both of them.
Right.
Okay.
I'll take
So would I.
So would I. Without a doubt. Right futures for both of them.
Now,
so do I.
Being objective about Nate Davis's prediction, and I congratulate him on nailing the Super Bowl last year.
That's impressive.
This was a lot of fun to read today. But he's got Indy going 13-3, which would give them a bye and 2 home playoff games, and he has them beating the Ravens and then Peyton's team at home to get to the Super Bowl. I don't think they can go 13-3. I'll give you 10-6 because I thought with Reggie Wayne's return, I assume he's going to be okay. And remember, they had kind of a quiet little big signing of Akeem Nicks. I thought that was pretty important. So Andrew with T.Y. Hilton, now his receiving corps should be pretty big time, right?
Yeah,
okay?
Absolutely. So
I'm going to give you 10-6. It's not the Nate Davis called an easy schedule. I don't think it's that easy. None of these schedules are that easy. But in this case, I'll go 10-6. Now back to Seattle quickly. You make a point about all of a sudden Russell Wilson's going to have to take it up one more level.
He will.
It was interesting after their OTA session yesterday. He said the most impressive unit on the field was his receiving corps, which has lost Golden Tate, obviously. But he's saying that Percy Harvin, healthy, makes them the fastest group of receivers in football. Well, I was interested because I'm thinking, well, I don't know. Will Percy Harvin stay healthy all year? Maybe that'll be the secret weapon they haven't had. So it's hard for me to pick against them on that side, but I'm still going Patriots over Colts. I still got the Patriots winning the AFC, and it's hard for me to bet against them. And by the way, I got to point out, Nate Davis has in the NFC West, he's got, and Stephen A. has this reversed, but he's got Seattle going 12-4, San Francisco going 11-5, then he's got Arizona going 10-6, and St. Louis going 10-6.
Wow.
That would be double-digit wins for all 4 teams in the division. I don't think that's ever happened in the NFL.
I don't think it will happen.
It was pretty tough.
Coming this summer, the 2014 FIFA World Cup from Brazil. Every goal.
The shot scores! The USA leads by 2!
Every save.
Here's Germany up. Steele, closer. In the box. The shot is stopped.
Every match. Wherever you are this summer, take the FIFA World Cup with you. It's on ESPN Radio and the ESPN Radio app.
First take on the road, ladies and gentlemen, for the finals starting Thursday, June 5th. 10 a.m. Eastern, you can join us. We're going to be at the Hard Rock Cafe. That's in San Antonio along the Riverwalk. It's going to be nice and cool there, I'm pretty sure. No sweating. Nice and relaxed. Then when the series shifts to Miami, join us at the Clevelander Hotel on South Beach, another cool location. First take on the road, so come be a part of the show. All right, let's talk more about Nate Davis. He recently made record projections for, again, all 32 NFL teams this year. Over in the AFC East, Davis projected the Jets to return to the playoffs, finishing 10-6. In the NFC East, Davis again thinks Romo's back, and weak defense will have Skip's Cowboys going 3-13. That's unfair.
Unfair.
But might be accurate. Mark Brunell, still with us. With more more than likely to happen, kind expert?
More than likely to happen, the Jets going 10-6. Rex Ryan is one of the best head coaches I've ever been around, without a doubt. I was with him 2 years. Last year, 8-8, he had a quarterback that turned the ball over. Almost got into the playoffs. My experience with him is this, is that of all the head coaches I've played for some really good ones, guys that I respect, enjoy playing for. Mike Holmgren, Joe Gibbs, Tom Coughlin, Sean Payton, some of the best in the business.
You had a good run.
I had a real good run. Very, very fortunate. Of all those guys, Rex Ryan was the coach that got his players to play for him better than all of them. I remember Saturday night meetings before the game in the hotel. Most head coaches, they'll take 10, 15 minutes to get their team going, get them focused, give them the charge, get them fired up. Now, I'm a quarterback, or I was a quarterback, and I'd sit in the back of those meetings, and I would get fired up. Rex Ryan would fire this old quarterback up, and I wasn't even playing. He has a unique ability to get his players to play at the best potential. I mean, very, very impressive. He's a rough and tumble guy. He's a fighter. When his back's against the wall, his guys play for him. What he did with Geno Smith, I thought it was his best coaching performance, even better than those 2 AFC championship games. And I'll add this. I think they'll win 10 games, but I think it'll be with Michael Vick at the helm.
Oh, no, that's a whole other story.
That's a whole other story. We don't have to go there, but I can see that happen. Well, let me talk about the Cowboys real quick.
Okay.
3-13, there's no chance. You lose one player on defense, Sean Lee, you'll find a replacement for him. Okay, you get it. But you've got the firepower. Everyone's all over Tony Romo. Get off his back. He can still play. Get off his back. He can still play the game. Jason Witten, Dez Bryant, without a doubt. They have to commit to running the football. If they run the football, which is the best thing to do, if you've got a poor defense, I think they're just going to be fine. I think they'll be right there at the end, but I don't see them going 3-13, and I certainly see the Jets winning 10 games with Michael Vick.
Now you got me fired.
Come on.
I want to go play right now.
You are. Okay.
Wow.
Rex Ryan impersonation. Come on.
Be nice.
No, don't.
Don't.
Come on.
You know what? That was a strong answer
was
from Mark
very
Brunell. That was his best answer ever.
Guess what? I just top line the producer. I said Mark is bringing it. I literally just said that.
All right.
You like?
I think Stephen A. is about to bring it.
Okay.
Gentlemen, ladies, let me be very, very clear. I do believe that the Jets have a better chance of winning 10, going 10-6. The Dallas Cowboys, I don't believe will be 3-13. I think they'll win about 5 or 6 games. They won't win more than 6. They'll go 6-10. I'll deal with your comment about the Dallas Cowboys and Tony Romo in just a second. But I'm not going to spend too much time making statements. More so, I'm going to choose to ask questions. You played with the New York Jets. You were inside that locker room. I have tremendous respect for your football knowledge. I like Rex Ryan. I believe he should be the coach in New York. Despite the fact that you have to ask those questions based on the team's performance, I always hated it in New York radio because I want Rex Ryan around. I just do. I agree with what you're saying as it pertains to his ability to get guys to go out there and perform at their best level. But I'm not sure he knows a damn thing about offense. And that's where I need your help. Because the hiring, and I don't want to knock the man, especially now. I don't know where he's at, if he's even employed or whatever. But the hiring of Tony Sparano as your offensive coordinator just seemed to be so awful. And when you look at Rex Ryan on the record at times talking about how he does not want to be, or it's not a priority, he's got guys to handle the offense. He's just handling the defensive side of the ball. I'm curious as to why you thought the job was so outstanding. Are you talking in total, or are you talking about just him on the defensive side of the ball? We know Marty Morningwig is handling the offense.
I'm talking about total. He's a defensive guy. Most head coaches, their defense or their offense. And if they're defense, they let the offensive guys handle I will say this. Having Mark Sanchez as your quarterback, that was tough. That was tough. First 2 years, it was great. They had that Seattle Seahawks formula. That was tough. Sparano was a mistake. But I don't think they had the talent, the people around Sanchez. That's part of it.
But that's on Rex. I mean, because he was there those first 2 years.
Yes, and I'm talking about last year.
Okay.
8-8 with that group.
Okay.
With that group, and I'm talking defense and offense. They didn't have a lot to work with.
All right.
They really didn't. They struggled, and especially he had a young quarterback that gave the ball away. He turned it over. And if you win 8 games and your quarterback turns the ball over that much, that's impressive to me.
I agree with you that Michael Vick will eventually be in there. Now, second part is about letting me get to the Cowboys. You know, because, see, some of y'all football analysts, y'all are real slick. Because y'all fall in that. Don't listen, forget Skip for a second here. Nobody said that Tony Romo can't play. If you look at his numbers, clearly he can play. He's no scrub. But can you rely on him to deliver in the big moments? The answer would be no. Then when you take into account Mr. Jason Garrett, you know, the glorified head coach in waiting at the time. You know, we are waiting for this man to come, the offensive coordinator that was paid the same as a head coach. Okay, because he was getting paid the same as Wade Phillips, which is egregious in and of itself. I'm just sitting there saying, when is there come a time that we look at the Cowboys and simply ask what Skip even has come along and asked? When's enough enough? When do you move on? Because the person at the helm has shown you he's just not going to get it done.
He's better than a lot of other options out there, I'll tell you that. And his time is now. He needs to perform. He needs to be that guy.
You're going to say that
clutch.
now that he's coming up with back surgery?
Yeah, I mean, when he gets out there, he'll be healthy. Listen, you have back surgery doesn't mean you can't recover from it. Doesn't mean that you can't go out there and play, 16 games and get into the playoffs. They're not going to put him out there if it's still a major issue where he can't perform at a high level. So, listen, I think Tony can get it done.
Y'all go ahead. Jets will go about 9-7, and the Cowboys will go about 6-10.
Okay.
Go ahead, Skip.
Okay, to Mark's caveat point, the big X factor with the Jets, and the reason it's hard to answer this question is, if Michael Vick starts, even games, say 2 or 3 in there, he finally gets his shot, I could see this team getting on a run and going 10-6. If Geno starts all 16 games, 7-9 at best.
I agree.
He just turns the ball over too much, and I'm not sold on him long-term as the face of the franchise starting quarterback. And I think the new GM has kind of hitched his star to Geno, and they're going to go down with the ship, and I don't love that. Now, on the Cowboys side, do you realize the last time this team went 3-13, it cost Tom Landry his job, as he was deposed because Jerry bought the team at that point, because the sale price fell so low because they were nobody. They were still the Dallas Cowboys. So I look at this schedule, and I'm going to remind you guys, they have to play the NFC West. So they open at home against San Francisco, your team. Then they have to go to St. Louis. They have to go to Seattle. They got Arizona at home. And not to mention, they have New Orleans at home, which all-time humiliated them on Sunday Night Football. Remember when they gave up the record first downs? And they have to go to Chicago on a Thursday night, and then they have to play the vaunted Indianapolis Colts of the bad man that is Andrew Luck. They have to play them at home, second to last game. This is a brutal schedule. I didn't get into the NFC East yet. So I'm going to say, the fan in me, I'm doing glasses half full. I'm going 5-11.
Oh, wow.
But is 3-13 a possibility here? With what I still think is the worst defense in pro football, it just lost its, arguably its best player, or its most important player, in Sean Lee. What did they do to get better on defense? I can't see it. I don't know it. They didn't draft it that I could see yet. So I'm being wildly optimistic at 5-11 because I think they are the worst team in the NFC East. Can you do better than that?
I agree with that, and they have to go find somebody because that position is not on their roster, I don't believe, right now. And if it is, it's a young guy who will no way measure up to Sean Lee, captain of the defense, good player in that scheme, without a doubt. But they've got some problems on defense, no question.
5-11.
Who?
5-11.
Cowboys.
5-11 I can live with. I was just trying to be nice.
6-10 is what you said,
I say 6-10, but 5-11 seems more reasonable.
It's hard to go 3-13.
Really?
It's hard to go 3-13.
Not when you're scrubs.
Well, I don't think they're scrubs. I mean, when you've got the talent that they have, the firepower that they potentially could have.
DeMarco Murray, Des Bryant, Tony Romo. Okay. Anything else?
Witten.
The offensive line is coming along. It could be one of the better ones.
Slowly.
Seriously.
Which will help.
Surely.
You know what? It's just me. I do find myself, listen, no one will argue with Witten's numbers. There's no question about that. I do believe he's entirely too close with Tony Romo, and they have combined to alienate others who could help them. I do believe that there are people on the roster, past and present, who look at those two and feel like they're on the outside looking in, and as a result, it creates some unnecessary friction because in the sport of football, unlike basketball where you just wearing a tank top, you're out there performance, and you are a walking brand. When you are the NFL players, right or wrongly, you've got guys wearing their helmets, their shoulder pads, starving for their own shine in some capacity to facilitate, monetary, benefits for themselves, and they're looking at what you have with the Cowboys, and it's like they're resentful of it. And I think that that's one of the things that gets in the way. Even though Witten's numbers are there, I find myself looking at that, and I also find myself looking at him. He looks so slow. I can't understand how he gets open so much. I really can't understand it.
He's got a feel.
NBA Finals start Thursday. I don't know if you heard. Tony Parker's health could have a huge impact on the outcome, or maybe not, according to some stats. So the Spurs will need to have all of their weapons in place to deny the Heat a third consecutive championship. Three-peat, folks. Who's the biggest X factor in the finals, Stephen A?
The biggest X factor in the finals is Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh has to perform. He has to show up. He has to make jump shots. He can't be somebody that's playing the role of spectator. He has to show up. I think in the finals he will. And even though he didn't score in Game 7 last year, he played good defense. He gave a lot of effort. And I don't think that can go unnoticed. But he needs to do more in these finals. He's got to show up. He's got to be the Chris Bosh that we saw the last 3 games against Indiana. It can't be the Chris Bosh we saw, the first 3 games. He's got to be an active participant. He's got to hit perimeter shots because that's going to help pull some of those big boys away from the basket and give Dwayne Wade and LeBron James more room to operate, in terms of getting to the lane or posting up their guys. If Chris Bosh doesn't give you anything, my prediction for the Miami Heat will probably be wrong. To me, he is the key for Miami winning. Ray Allen can hit threes. LeBron James can drop 25. Dwayne Wade can drop 23 to 25. If Chris Bosh is absent in these NBA finals, I don't believe that the Miami Heat can beat the San Antonio.
Even though the Heat obviously won Game 7 last year in Miami with Chris Bosh, 0 points and only 7 rebounds, which is okay, but not great.
Not 4 games. Not 4 games. He had played, up to that point, and he had good moments. But I'm saying to you that I don't expect another donut for him. That was an aberration. And 1 game, anything could happen. But I'm talking about over the course of a series, he's got to be present. And I'm not knocking Chris Bosh in any way. I'm telling you how important he is. He's getting paid 9 figures too. We constantly talk about LeBron and we constantly talk about D-Wade. Chris Bosh is no scrub. Chris Bosh can play this game. Chris Bosh knows how to put the ball in the hole, and he would damn sure need to. You've got to show up against Tim Duncan and the Thiago Splitters and the Boris Diaws of the world. You've got to make your presence felt on both ends of the floor. You've got to defend well, and you've got to average at least 15 a game in this series if you're Chris Bosh. You need to show up and make sure that you're somebody whose offensive game they have to respect. If you don't do that, you put more of a load on the shoulders of LeBron and D-Wade, and that's going to be unacceptable, which is one of the reasons why D-Wade got a crew of people to go over to Chris Bosh's house, have a good time during the playoffs against Indiana, whatever. He knows how important Chris Bosh is to Miami's success, especially against San Antonio. You need him to do that because, think about it, when you look at the skill set that Tim Duncan brings to the table, obviously, unlike Bosh, Tim Duncan can really play with his back to the basket. But he's formidable on the perimeter, on the wing, etc. Chris Bosh needs to do something akin to that. He has to do it.
I'm still astounded by Miami's success as a team that's a poor rebounding team.
Yeah.
No rebounds, no rings, not in this case. And a team that really doesn't block shots. So they don't rebound, they don't block shots, and they win? They're going for a three-peat? They're back in the NBA Finals for a fourth straight time. My God, how did they do this? Well, it's because those other two guys are pretty good. They're pretty great. Which brings me to my X factor, and I'm going to say it again. The baddest man in Miami is Dwayne Wade. And I remind you, remember Game 4 in San Antonio last year? Spurs are up 2-1 with 2 more home games because it's the old 2-3-2 format.
Right.
I'd say Miami's in big trouble because if you fall down 3-1, I think Spurs are going to win the championship.
Okay.
And who came to play that night? That X Factor guy. That guy Dwayne Wade showed up. Remember, he goes 32, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 6 steals. Dwayne Wade had 6 steals in Game 4 and just took the game over, and it was a blowout in favor of the visiting team, which turned the series back around and gave the Heat a chance. That saved the series. Would you agree with that?
Yeah,
okay.
I would agree with that.
All right. Now, let me answer the other side of this. And I want to tell you, this is why the Spurs are going to win the NBA championship in 6 games. You know why I love this question?
Why?
The San Antonio Spurs have 12 X factors.
Oh.
That's what I love about them. I can't give you one because I don't need to give you one. I have no idea who the X factor will be night after night after night. It might be Game 6 in Oklahoma City. Boris Diaw scores 26 points. Who knew? Played great defense. It might be Kawhi Leonard, as it was in Game 6 and 7 last year. It might be Manu Ginobili, as it has been often throughout the playoffs. It might be Patty Mills, my favorite Spur, actually, coming off the bench, bombing threes. You love him. It might be Bellinelli, who hasn't done much in the playoffs, but he could heat up real fast against the Miami Heat. I could go on and on because I can go all the way to the bottom of the roster. It could be any of those guys, which is why my prediction will be right. 12 X factors.
So we did this topic to say he was going to be right.
Well, let me tell you this.
I didn't. This wasn't my idea.
Chris Bosh, think about this. Remember when San Antonio beat the Heat by 36 last year in the NBA Finals? I'm sorry. I believe it was. I believe it was. I believe they blew them out one game. Yeah. They came back the very next game. Miami won that game.
Game 4.
Chris Bosh had 20 points, 13 rebounds.
Was Game 3 by 36?
I think so. I got it right in front of me. That's what it's telling me here.
All right.
It
could have been.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at it from the standpoint that I watch the Miami Heat. And, of course, they're going to be a bevy of factors. And like you talked about with the San Antonio Spurs, they got a lot of factors themselves. A lot of guys that can come off the bench, do some things for you. Of course, I'm not saying that Chris Bosh does his thing so Ray Allen doesn't have to do anything. Shane Battier doesn't have to do anything. Norris Cole, Mario Chalmers, Udonis Haslem don't have to do anything. Birdman, Chris Anderson is going to be a factor in this series as well. You're going to need his big body. These are factors. But the key for me is that it can't always be the same big two showing up. Somebody has to.
Well, now they always have somebody coming out of nowhere. Remember Battier in Game 7 last year? Didn't he drop 7 threes?
But what I'm saying to you is that in this series, because of who Chris Bosh is and because of who he has to go up against, he needs to be a factor.
Okay.
He has to be a factor in order for Miami
I
to
agree,
escape with this
but I
series.
consider him like a steady factor. I don't think
always
he comes
there.
and goes. Yeah, I think he's always pretty good.
I agree with that, but I'm saying he has to in this particular instance because it's paramount against San Antonio because San Antonio really where their weaponry hits you is their versatility. They can go inside or out. That's the difference. It's like, what's the problem with the Thunder? They beat you one way. What's the problem with the Clippers? They beat you one way. Yes, Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, but they beat you one way.
Yep.
You know, all of these teams, they beat you one way. San Antonio beats you in a multitude of ways. And to offset that, you have to preoccupy them with what you're throwing at them. And Chris Bosh has to assist them.
Okay, he does. You know, I didn't even mention Danny Green because I don't want to jinx him. I don't want to put too much pressure on him.
Okay.
But he made 25 of his first 38 three-point attempts through 5 games in the finals.
Yes.
Phenomenal.
Making up for it.
But I'm not going to mention what he did in Games 6 and 7 because that's it.
He's still one of the 12.
He's one of the 12.
Des Bryant has become one of the top receivers in the game, and Cowboys coach Jason Garrett could not agree more. He spoke Monday admiring Bryant. He even compared him to Hall of Famer Michael Irvin, saying, quote, I have a great fondness for Michael Irvin. I had the good fortune of playing with Michael for 8 years. Michael Irvin set the pace and the tempo for our team all throughout the 90s. He worked harder than anybody else, and Des Bryant has a lot of those same traits. You're sighing while I'm reading.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Do you agree with Jason Garrett? Does he have a point?
Stephen A. Smith, I don't want to be too hard on Des Bryant at this moment because he doesn't deserve for me to be this hard on him. He might be a little more talented than Michael Irvin ever was, just in speed and athletic ability, leaping ability. But this question is frankly insulting to Michael Irvin. You know him. I know him very well. I covered his teams. He was the leader and the rocket fuel for teams that should have won 4 straight Super Bowls. He was not a me guy. He was a we guy. He had extreme winners intangibles. It was all about what does the team need to do to pull together and win championships. And he wasn't called the playmaker for nothing, because when number 8, as in Troy Aikman, got in any kind of trouble, when it was 3rd and 8 in Philadelphia or New York or Washington in December, he looked to 88, as in Michael Irvin. They ran very simple pass patterns, in cut, out cut. Just throw it to 88 because he's going to make the play that will win the game. Des Bryant has yet to demonstrate to me winners' intangibles. I'm not going to go to losers' intangibles, but Des is a me guy. And when it comes to playmaking, to making the play at the moment, too often Des has fallen short. And I remind you, do you remember the Giants game in 2012, 2 years ago in October? Passed to the back line, couldn't get his feet down to win the game against your New York Football Giants. No, he didn't. The great Drew Pearson, who should be in the Hall of Fame, another great Cowboy receiver, blasted Des, or at least criticized him the day after, saying you just have to get your feet down on this play. I'm sorry, you got to figure out how to stay in bounds on that play. It's a play Michael Irvin would have made, obviously Drew Pearson would have made. Des Bryant has not figured out how to make that play at that moment, which is why I'm still waiting and seeing on Des Bryant.
Yeah, you're right, he didn't get hit. But let me say this, Skip. You can be right and be unfair. And that's what I think you are right now. You're right, but you're unfair. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, understand something about the playmaker. He's one of a kind. He's a winner personified.
He might be unique.
He's a winner personified. I mean, when you talk about the playmaker, Michael Irvin, you're talking about one of the elite competitors ever. I personally feel, despite the great job that he does on the NFL Network, I think he's in the wrong profession because I think he should be coaching. Because when I watch him working with receivers and telling them what's required and just the intensity and the passion that he brings, you can't play around that, man. You got, even when he's working out, he's working for the damn network and he ain't even coaching you. You know he's not playing games. Sort of like John Gruden with the quarterback, with the whole quarterback segment. Oh, no, you better come in there ready. You're going to get embarrassed because John Gruden's going to embarrass you. And so will the playmaker Michael Irvin when he's talking to receivers about what they should do. But I say this to you to say this. Michael Irvin had Troy Aikman. He had Emmitt Smith. He had the old school mentality of what football was all about. And more importantly, he had Jimmy Johnson. Not just to coach him, but to assist in keeping Jerry Jones in check. Back then, it was more about winning. It wasn't about headlines. It wasn't about Hollywood. It wasn't about pizzazz. Don't get me wrong, Jerry Jones is a hype machine and a marketing whiz, and he was always that way. But there's a line that he had to toe. Because Jimmy Johnson didn't care about that the way he cared about winning. Michael Irvin didn't care about that the way he cared about winning. Troy Aikman didn't care about that the way he cared about winning. Emmitt Smith didn't care about that the way they cared about winning. And when you are surrounded with greatness, who are willing to hold themselves and everybody else accountable, it assists you even more. And it can't be about I. It's got to be about we. Look at how the game has changed and evolved. Look at the atmosphere surrounding professional sports. Look at the money that's involved in the game. Look at how distractions are allowed. I mean, back in the day, not to, because I'm not knocking T.O., I'm not knocking Chad Ochocinco or anybody else. You wouldn't have been allowed to have a reality TV show. In that locker room? Are you crazy? You know what they would have done to you? Nobody, you couldn't do anything that was seen remotely as being a distraction during the season, on the field or in that locker room without being called to the carpet. I'm telling you, Des Bryant didn't create this. He inherited it. You come into the game and all of this is surrounding you. Plus you come into the game with your own issues, the own need for a maturation process to kick in, coming out of Oklahoma State and what have you. Whether it's guidance from primetime Deion Sanders or Michael Irvin, or whether they felt the need to stay away from you because you might have been too hard-headed and you're not listening at that particular juncture. And then who do you get to lean on? Tony Romo and Jason Garrett? Is Jason Garrett in any way? I'm going to ask you, Mr. Author of Cowboy Books, all right, the former columnist at the Dallas Morning News. Is Jason Garrett even in the same stratosphere as a Jimmy Johnson?
Jason Garrett should not be the coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, he's not in the same stratosphere. He's not in the same.
Who made this comparison that we are reacting to? Jason Garrett.
By the way, is Tony Romo in the same stratosphere as a Troy Aikman? I'm talking about production. I'm talking about respect.
But Tony's no scrub.
I didn't say. I know he's no
his
scrub.
Numbers are way better than Troy's because they ran the ball a lot.
I'm telling you, he can play, but he wasn't the same. He didn't have the same cachet. That's what I'm saying. Des Bryant doesn't have that. Michael Irvin did.
Troy said many times Tony's better than me.
Like,
as a passer, I think
there are plenty of players. Listen, you can find players in the park that might be better than LeBron or MJ for crying out loud, but not when it gets on the court and it's time for this prime time.
Prime time.
You can look the part.
Totally different.
You can look the part, but that don't make you the part. So let's be clear. Tony Romo and Jason Garrett is who Des Bryant has to work with. The playmaker's going to be the playmaker. Please don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it was it good for him to come to work every day. Look what Des Bryant's got to deal with.
On Monday night, Derek Jeter was caught having a rare mental lapse during a play against the Mariners. Jeter almost caught a deflected ball near the foul line, but when it hit the ground, Jeter didn't realize it was a fair ball and kind of casually, laissez-faire, walked toward the stands. Everyone, including pitcher David Phelps, was frustrated with the captain. Shocked by that play?
David Phelps?
Yeah, you know him, right?
Wait, it has come to this for the great Derek Jeter? Poor Derek Jeter. Once upon a time, Derek Jeter would have, A, made that play. B, he would have been aware enough to know it was a live fair ball. And C, somebody named David Phelps, who is now 1-3 for the New York Yankees and has a career record of 11-12, would not have dared to yell, "Throw the ball" at Derek Jeter, the captain, El Capitan, as you always call him.
Oh.
He's yelling. David Phelps, age 27,
Skip
with
Bayless.
a 1-3 record, is yelling at poor Derek Jeter.
Would you stop?
My
your
God.
hyperbole and your
It has
ridiculous
come to this?
The fact is that what are you going to do on a baseball field? Whisper? You were yelling for him to throw you the ball.
Yeah, you can't
weren't yelling at him.
you can't whisper. That's
it was
a good point.
Mistake on the part of Derek Jeter.
Can you
he
believe
is
it?
not flawless. He's a human being. A mere.
That's not what you told me for the last 5 years.
Listen, I know you better be respectful. I know that much.
The great Derek Jeter?
It happens.
How did he not make the play? I mean, those are the kind he just puts in his back pocket.
I know you better be respectful.
I'm being totally
You better
respectful.
watch your mouth.
I'm asking you,
I'm serious.
has it come to this?
Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can catch First Take Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on ESPN2.